I was never supposed to be born. I was the accident of my parents, the disappointment that killed their every chance of a good future. To recap, my parents had my sister months after their wedding, which I believe is the reason they got married, because 3 months isn't enough time to have a baby. After she was born, the doctor said my mother wouldn't have any other children, which is what they believed at the time. Obviously, the doctor was wrong. They had an unwanted baby, a mistake if you will, which was me. For a long time I was led to believe that my birth was a blessing or a miracle, but somewhere along the way I realized I wasn't. They did an excellent job at hiding it for a while, and they didn't realize I knew what I was, and they never did. My childhood was messed up. Growing up with a family that didn't want you to begin with was hard. I did what any normal child would do. I learned to speak, to read, to write, but it was never enough. They always wanted more. On the other hand, you had my sister, who would do these things, but she would be praised and treated like royalty. I started to believe at one point that I was never going to be as good or as loved like my older sister. So time went by. My uncles and aunts liked me. They would appreciate me. Those times would be the only times I felt loved and in comfort, but that time was never enough. It would be cut short by my parents who, at arriving home, would put me in my room, shut the lights and leave. And while I was trying to sleep, I could hear the voice of my mother chanting a lullaby to my sister while I was left alone in the dark. And then and there, I learned that the darkness was my place in the world. Some years later, in primary school, I was the kid who was smart, but just because all her free time would consist of studying, while the average 6-year-old would be playing with toys and playing with their parents, but no, not me. I was never with my parents. They left me be, learn by yourself, grow by yourself. I guess one would say I had some friends, but every kid has a lot of friends, especially when they're younger. I had one single friend, one friend that I would consider a friend. At the end of the year, I realized I wasn't his. The lack of friendships and social interactions made me back up in my place in the world, the place where I would always go to, the darkness. Years later, we moved to a whole other country, a place called Canada. I guess when you're 8, you can believe that this can mean a new beginning for you. Heck, that's what I thought. It wasn't long until I was proven wrong and set back into reality, my reality. Going to school, I was set back a year for linguistic purposes, but it wasn't long before they jumped me a year because of my overperformance. I guess it did pay off, right? That's my thought as a child. They will be proud of me. They will finally notice and love me. No. Everything went back to the way it was when my parents didn't give a damn about my achievements. I guess it wasn't enough after all, was it? I passed. I went to a regular school, yet my sister, she stayed in the old school, the welcoming schools of Canada. However, she still got all the attention and the love of both my parents. I then learned that a new place didn't mean that things were going to change. They stayed the dreadful things like the good things. The only problem was, I was lacking good things. Eventually, we moved again, but this time to Montreal, an island filled with culturally evolved population. We moved, but why did we move? The only reason we moved was because my older sister was starting a new school, and to ease her trip, we moved 15 minutes away from her school. I, however, wasn't in a winning situation again. Since I got to Canada, I had gone through 2 schools in the 2 years since my arrival. And moving yet again meant a whole other school, another bunch of people to get to know, even though they all knew each other already. I was once again the outsider at this new school. My new house didn't help my transition very well either. I was in the other side of the island, while the school was located at the west. I was in the east. I had to take the subway, which was this complex and immense maze to me, as a 10-year-old had to figure out by myself. It was around 40 minutes of public transport for about 10 months, in which I didn't socialize with anyone from that school, since I had at that point learned that it was useless to make friends since I was sure to change schools again. So I was alone for 10 months. Lonely, but I had learned to live with that since my life had been a training session for the loneliness in the world. High school came in. The exam that was due to pass was apparently hard. It was an unreal chance for me, a kid whose intelligence was everything she had left, to pass, yet somehow I did. Maybe deep inside I was hoping my parents would notice me because of it. However, they didn't. It was a letdown yet again. Years went by, so I had to socialize, make friends in some way, right? Well, one can say the same about having confidence. It's easy to say when you have it, but extremely hard to get it when you don't. The walls I had built all my life to protect myself from feeling anything remotely close to love or affection. These walls eventually faded away. Obviously, as a teenager, one would be led to believe this would be true. I believed it. It was a ray of light that shines in my darkest days, in which I remembered in my youth my problems and my social anxiety. Friends are the ones to get me through all this. You believe that, lay your guard down, but does that mean it's okay? I sure would hope so. It was an idea I wouldn't have believed when I was a child, the child entitled The Outsider. Oddly enough, it was true. I lived a happy school life, decent grades, no problem. However, it all went back to hell when I went home. I had the subway to ease my mind from the good to bad. The moment I stepped home, where there are less people than in school, I was even worth less than one person in 600. My persona was reduced to nothing, and I was left to wander alone in the halls of my house, hoping the next day would come soon enough, where I would stuff myself with homework, enough homework to busy myself during the hours at home. It was all good, but the rebuilding of that protective armor during the trip back home was a rough one, since the next day I was shed from it to go to school. At school, I was vulnerable, and there is where my happiness became my worst nightmare. School was a good place. Well, it used to be. The moment you felt any different than the rest, the moment you started feeling like you belonged, you realized you don't. And the worst part of all is the people closest to you, the ones you wouldn't believe would hurt you, are the ones that cause the most pain. When you feel left out, when they forget you, when you feel like they outcasted you, the constant feeling of the abandonment of your closest ones becomes a threat. It becomes a burden. You start feeling drowned. And that is what I felt. The constant fear of losing the people I cared about most made me the person I didn't want to be. The armor that was built for protecting was shattered. Caring for these people made me weak. It made me my most vulnerable self, and that's where it stung. I was so scared of losing them that I pushed them away. By myself, I dragged myself out of the circles I have so-called loved that I believed to have. After all, I didn't really change over the years. I was still the outsider that no one wanted, that no one loved. I mean, why would they? My presence is only a burden. It's a heavy duty that they must carry around out of pity. I could never be enough for them, for myself. I was useless and stupid. Stupid enough to believe that these friendships could take me out of the loneliness that existed. You can't get rid of it. I was alone, casting myself aside. I mean, why would I deserve to be around them? It only hurt when I came back to my reality. I could hear them talk about me. It would make me uncomfortable. They saw me as this person that didn't have anyone but herself. Problem with that is, I wasn't sure I could even rely on myself. All my choices were the wrong ones, even when I believed to be doing the right thing. I couldn't do that. I couldn't focus. I could hear their voices everywhere, the constant murmurs from the halls, the lockers, the cafeteria. School wasn't a good place anymore. It never was. I was the one to blind myself not to see the harsh truth, and once I saw it, it was horrible. The people, the classes, all useless. Why even try? I'm not good enough either way. Going home wasn't good either. Having a broken armor from surviving school left a lot of place for the house to break me even more. I couldn't keep up with it anymore. The only safe place was the subway, where silence conquered everything, where everyone was alone and quiet, just like me. I was finally like the rest. The subway felt like home, a short-timed home, but a safe one, where I didn't have any noises and pain from the harshness of the real world. However, the moment I stepped out of the subway, it was a battlefield. Getting through the day without having an emotional break is nearly an impossible mission. I was treated like shit, but of course, in front of me, everyone acted all nice. But the murmurs don't go away. They stay and I remember, and then they hurt for a long time. Scars that stick on for longer than they should. There comes a moment where you just give up, you know? where it doesn't matter what I do, it doesn't matter what I choose, and I have no say about it. I'm the problem. And that's the moment to realize that isn't worth it anymore. The only way to stop all the murmurs and the pain is to stop being able to hear them. I can't do that by myself, and it just keeps hurting more and more every single day. I feel like my head is about to explode, and I can't take it anymore. I am a counting grenade. I can explode at any given moment, but I don't want that moment to be chosen by itself. If I can end it all once and for all, no one would even care anyways. I'm worthless. I'm nothing. The aftermath would be meaningless. I can't deal with this anymore. This is it. The end. I can return to the one place where I feel safe. The one place where my life has been the least horrible, and it can all finish here.